BWB. No, we need an Ed McMahon type, kind of a 2-minute, loosen up the crowd.
I think that's. You or Jason, I think, could do that.
Jason's got the. Good morning. I would like to welcome everybody to the County of Chautauqua Industrial Development Agency for a directors meeting. We're at BWB Building, 201 West 3rd Street, Jamestown, New York. We're also streaming live via YouTube and Zoom. It's February the 25th at 10:30. Go ahead and start with a roll call. Gary Henry's here. Tom Harmon.
Here.
Amy Harding.
Here.
Dan DeMart.
Here.
John Healy.
Here.
Dan Hetzenrader.
Here.
Sagan is going to be joining us a little late, so once she gets here, we'll welcome her as well. You should have already received the January 28th, 2025 minutes, had a chance to review those. Do we have a motion to accept those minutes?
So moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Aye.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The minutes have been approved. Please make sure you take note of your packets, the judiciary information that you have to fill out for being on the board is that. So ideally, if you could just fill it out today before you leave and make sure you leave that with Jeanette, that'd be great. If you can't, or you need to get more information, you can always get it filled out and get it turned back in. But we have to do that every year. So just make sure you get those filled out. We'd also like to welcome John Healy to the board, and I think Mark would like to introduce him.
Yeah, so John Healy replaces Brad Walters. I talked about it at last month's meeting that Brad had was retiring from the building exchange of the Southern Tier and resigned his position. For years, John has mentored under Brad, and I've known John for a number of years. He's a outstanding person. I'm going to read his bio, if you don't mind, and then give him an opportunity to say a few words. So John lives in Bemis Point. John's the executive director of the Builders Exchange of the Southern Tier and has 20 years experience in the construction industry, including architecture, engineering, construction, administration, estimating, and project management with educational, healthcare, commercial, utility, and infrastructure projects. Healy's educational background includes an MBA from the Franciscan University of Steubenville, a BA from the University of Mount Union, and is a certified project management professional. He serves on numerous local organizations, including the Workforce Investment Board, Jamestown YMCA, and is past president of the Jamestown Noon Rotary Club. He also has a family of 4 boys. He's very active in their lives. Has a lovely wife as well. So I'm really excited to have you join us. Say a few words, then we'll all clap for you.
Well, thanks for letting me be a part of it, Mark, and all the board, everything you guys do, the CCIDA, you guys do a lot of great work in the community, and I'm happy to be a part of it. So looking forward to it. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, welcome.
Mark, may I add something here?
Yes, please.
This is real critical stuff. When
Baseball.
playing football at Mount Union,
Yep.
John Healy helped the Raiders to a 55-1 record and 3 NCAA Division III national champions.
Yeah.
How do you play baseball?
Got his baseball card done earlier today.
I got that through the door, so.
We'll go ahead and move into new business A, SL Jamestown and SL Jamestown 2 LLC presented by Rosie and Millen.
Chairman, before I get started, Janet Ford and Brandon Cottrell are on the line. They are from Catalyze. They will be available to answer any questions or provide any updates if necessary to the board. Back in November of 2024, the board was presented with applications for SL Jamestown and SL Jamestown 2 solar projects located in the town of Westi at 1192 Orr Street. Total megawatt for both projects together is 7.75, and total project cost is 19.6 million. I do want to note before I get into the savings and have them, the resolutions. As a reminder that these projects are supported by the town, or we would not be bringing them to the board for consideration. So again, town support has been provided for both these solar projects. As usual, this is a deviation from our standard UTAP, as all solar projects have been. So the term on this is going to be a 25-year pilot. Total exemptions for sales tax are going to be at 1.2 million. Total property tax abatement at 2.1 million. And the payments to the affected taxing jurisdiction over the life of the project are about $868,822. In February 12th, actually, I'm sorry, February 12th. There was a public hearing for both projects. There were comments during both public hearings. Those are noted in the transcripts that you've received prior to this meeting. And unless there's any other questions or questions for Catalyze, I can pass it on to the hearings.
Okay, first order of business is the deviation hearing. Notices were sent to each of the affected tax jurisdictions on January 30th, advising them of what the proposed pilot would be and that we would be holding the hearing this morning. There's been no correspondence from any of the affected tax jurisdictions, so I'd like to open up the deviation hearing and ask if there's any representatives from any of the affected tax jurisdictions who would like to speak in favor or against the project. Hearing none, we close the deviation hearing. There's a total of 4 resolutions, 2 for each project, and the 2 resolutions are the deviation resolution to deviate from your UTEP. Again, as Rose described, a 25-year pilot with the 6 numbers set forth in your packages, and an approving resolution for each of the 2 projects. As Rose said, we've held a public hearing. The town has been supportive of these projects, and I think we're ready to move forward, assuming that there's no issues or questions. Mr. Chairman, unless there's something that Catalyze would like to add, we can take the resolutions together or in any combination as you like.
Okay, thank you. One question, Rosie. When we had the open meeting, I see the school district spoke.
Yes, correct.
Did you feel comfortable saying if they were for or against the project?
Uh,
I had trouble understanding what they were trying to say.
And I apologize, the microphone did not pick up the audio. So my comments during the transcript were just based on notes that the superintendent had shared with me. They were not against the project. Their concerns were just how pilots affect the school over the long run.
Okay.
They were not against the project.
Okay, thank you.
And their attorney had called us in advance, Gary, to let us know they were there. And again, they were just there gathering information. And I would say, if anything, they're supportive,
Okay,
certainly not against it.
okay. Thank you.
And one more comment on that, which is that we, as with all of these projects, we don't take the underlying land off the tax rolls. So it's only the arrays that are a separate tax lot. So it's additive to all the affected tax jurisdictions. Taxes never go down. They only go up by the amount of the pilot payments.
And I did notice in that they acknowledged that they're gonna see increased revenue. So I took that as they were for it, but I just wasn't clear. So thank you. Any other questions? I'd like to mention that Sagan has joined us and she was here for the presentation. So certainly Sagan, you're welcome to vote on this if you'd like.
Well, I'm sorry, one more thing. The resolution before you doesn't have John's name on it. Because I apologize, John, I didn't draft them too early. So when they're finally put together, Jeanette and I will make sure that John's name is added.
Thank you. Okay. Tom, can you move new business A1 for us?
Absolutely. Resolution 2-25-25-01 SL Jamestown LLC deviation approval resolution. Resolution 02-25-25-02 SL Jamestown LLC final approving resolution, and resolution 02-25-25-03 SL Jamestown 2 LLC deviation approval resolution, and resolution 02-25-25-04 SL Jamestown 2 LLC final approving resolution.
Thank you. And do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dan. We'll go ahead and do a roll call vote. Gary Henry votes aye. Sagan Sheffield Smith.
Aye.
Tom Harmon.
Aye.
Amy Harding.
Aye.
Dan Demart.
Aye.
John Healy.
Aye.
Dan Hetzenreiter.
Aye.
And the resolutions have been unanimously approved. Next, we'll move into new business B, Mason Industrial Site, presented by Mark and Millen.
So I'm going to add a little context and then I'm going to kick it over to Matt Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald, we're joined by royalty. Not that you're not, Millen.
Yeah.
He's the secret king. Okay, so we thought, hey, why don't we have him talk about it? But I'm going to add some context. Talks about the actual resolution. As you recall, the IDA and the county agreed to split the cost of doing the environmental due diligence on the 60-acre site that the IDA owns in Mason and Hatfield Park. And that's the phase one environmental due diligence on the site. So the IDA contracted with Clark and they had some subcontractors and they undertook all of the environmental assessment work that needs to be done. They completed the full environmental assessment forms, parts 1, 2, and 3, and the backup, did all the backup review to complete the seeker. I'll talk a little bit about seeker, but this is really two phases. The first phase of making a shovel-ready site shovel-ready, or making a site shovel-ready is the environmental due diligence, and then, of course, the infrastructure, getting the infrastructure in place. So we also, the county through the ARPA funds is also paying for the work to get it shovel-ready in terms of the infrastructure. So we're contracting with Clark Patterson Lee again. That's just under $500,000, and they'll do all the pre-engineer, the engineering and the construction oversight work. So they'll develop those environmental drawing or those engineering drawings. We'll contract with contractors to do the work, and that'll be done. The timeline on that is probably by the May of 2026 to get that project completely done. Now back to part one, which is the seeker, just real quick, and then I'm going to kick it over to Matt. Article 8 of the New York State Environmental Conservation Law states that agencies must satisfy the requirements contained in seeker prior to making a final determination whether to undertake a project. In this case, the environmental due diligence to make this site shovel ready. And right now, this is it. We're going to be completing the seeker review of the project. What else? Project in connection with the agency's intention to undertake and fund the development of this project. So with that, I'm going to kick it over to Matt to talk about the actual seeker and why we're here today with this resolution. Thank you, Matt.
Mark, and thanks for the kind intro. Your check's in the mail for that, as discussed. So Mark summed it up. Before you can move forward with funding any of the great infrastructure improvements in the future to make this park really shovel ready for future development, you need to do an environmental review of, okay, what's the build out of the site going to look like? Clark Patterson Lee prepared a number of studies that are referenced in this resolution, covering everything from wetlands to threatened endangered species to traffic and everything in between. And looking at all of those resolutions, the proposal for the build out of the site, Clark Patterson Lee prepared the final report, which says that it doesn't look like any impacts from the development are going to be significantly adverse. So with that, we prepared this resolution that walks through a description of all the reports that were done, all of the relevant areas of environmental concern. In accordance with seeker, we sent out notices to all of the other interested and involved agencies, including the municipality, including the DEC, the Army Corps of Engineers, and anyone else who might have an interest in the project. to confirm that the IDA is going to undertake a coordinated review. We didn't receive any comments or objections to that by any of the agencies. So at this point, the IDA is in a position where it can now issue a negative declaration, a finding that there are no significant adverse environmental impacts associated with the project. And that's it in a nutshell. The only other thing I'll say is the agency, when the property was first purchased, did what's called a segmented review, where the agency looked at, okay, we're going to segment the review, the environmental review, and only look at acquiring it. And then in the future, we'll do more environmental review. This is the future. This is that more environmental review that you said you were going to do many years ago when you actually acquired the property.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, Sagan, would you move new business V1 for us?
Sure. Resolution 02-25-25-05, secret resolution, Mason Industrial Site.
And do we have a second?
I'll second.
Dan? We'll do a roll call vote. Gary Henry votes aye. Sagan Sheffield Smith.
Aye.
Tom Harmon.
Aye.
Amy Harding.
Aye.
Dan Demart.
Aye.
John Healy.
Aye.
Dan Hetzenreiter.
Aye.
The resolution has been unanimously approved.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, everybody.
Next, we'll move into the executive director's report.
Yeah, so I guess it was 4 or 5 years ago. We decided it was a good idea to do an annual report, talk about sort of what we accomplished and what our goals are moving forward. And I think we've refined that report every year. You all have it in front of you. I'm not going to spend more than 10 minutes. We'll see, 10 or 15 minutes. Talking about it. Somebody, hey, Rich, where are you? Oh, okay.
Out the door.
Sort of talking about these things because you're all here and you already know it. So, but so I'll go through this, try to hit the highlights and, see if there's any questions at the end. So, the infographic on the first page talks about sort of our accomplishments in a nutshell. And, our assistants leveraged over $311 million in investment, which is pretty significant. That's a good year for us in terms of investment. Part of that investment, the companies that we assisted are stating that they will create 166 new jobs. As part of that, there's also the construction jobs to build these, projects of 561 construction jobs, 771 jobs retained. I always say that a job retained is as good as a job created. We don't want to lose what we have, so that's really good that we're able to do projects that keep the jobs here. We secured over $4 million in grants. The total number of projects we did between loans and pilots was 18. We did 12 loans. They total about $4.75 million in low interest loans, high risk loans, and the $4.9 million of pilot payments will be going to the taxing jurisdictions as a result of the projects and the pilots that we approved in 2024. So that's sort of high level. And I'm just gonna, if you turn the page, remind you of some of those projects. Sort of did a top 10 here. Wells, Wells Ice Cream was purchased by Ferrero. They had 3 phases to their expansion projects. We approved phase 3 this year. In total, the investments are over $500 million. I think it was $175 million for phase 3. And that's an incredible project. If you go by the site and see all the cranes in the air and the building, 3 stories high, there's going to be a chocolate plant on the second floor. They're basically rebuilding the entire plant. So that's a great project. Y'all know about the shovel-ready sites. Mason, we just talked about it. That's going to be about 40 some acres of actually developable land in that 60 some acres, 62, I think it is, because some of it's wetlands. So we're making that shovel ready. We're also working on Ripley, which is a $16 million project. And that's, there's a lot to that project with extending the electric and road and water and sewer and acquiring the land for 4 different property owners. So we're working on that. Again, that's 150 acres in Ripley, right off the Shortman Road, right off the Shortman Road exit. You know, we did secure a big, another big tranche of funding for from the Ralph Wilson Foundation for CPAG. I'm going to let Nate talk about that later. We provided business development loans. I talked about the 12 loans, $4.75 million. Some of those loans were like Dahlstrom roll form by local ownership, which is really important because that's the type of company that could go anywhere and who knows what, you know, you end up with and the jobs leave, et cetera, potentially. But also acquisition of Universal Tool and Gary, Dunkirk Metal Products, Artone was equipment, Tim and Edmond, Excelco Newbrook. So we've done a lot of good loans that are scattered throughout the county. We did a housing kind of needs study, housing market and assessment study. A number of recommendations have come out of that we're working on. We do have, I think, 6 or 7 projects right now in the queue that will ultimately create housing for over 400 people. So that's a good one. Support service and hospitality businesses. Wicked Warrens next door here. Rich really put a lot of time and effort into that. And we got that, you know, acquired by Wicked Warrens, and they're going strong. There was a ribbon cutting at Hideaway Bay. A lot of you were there. That's a really great project. That was approved a couple of years ago, or last year, I can't remember, or in 2023. But anyway, they had the ribbon cutting and they're doing really well. The White Inn, if you haven't been there, you should go. Incredible. You know, that was a huge investment. We really assisted them a lot with not only incentives, but also a number of grants to support that. And then we did through the county, we received over $400,000 for what we call the ARPA Business Assistance Program. And we leveraged that money to with the Ralph Wilson Foundation, and they contributed, I think it was $350,000 as well to that program. And we were able to help 84 businesses with straight up grants through the partnership. But those averaged over $7,700 each. And it was to help them sort of tune up and improve their marketing presence. And there was a real need for that. But we also did, we worked with Invest Buffalo Niagara. We did as part of their economic gardening program, which helps stage 2 companies that sort of are poised to go to the next level to really figure out what they needed to do that. We worked very closely with the chamber, Dan and his team, and also a Small Business Development Center at JCC. It was a partnership, and we really knocked it out of the park. That was a good one. And then, you know, aggressively marketing the county for business development, relocation, and tourism. We launched the Live and Choose CHQ campaign, which was a big lift, and really just sort of has multiple purposes, but one is to attract people here because, you know, as we all know, there is population decline that's continuing since 1970. And how do we tell our story better about who we are and get more people to come here? But also on the Choose CHQ side, it's really about attracting businesses and, you know, letting them know of what we have to offer here in terms of business development. We also did that relocation guide. We updated it because we had done it way back 7 years ago, and then we updated it. We're on version 3 now, and we've distributed to companies to help them attract people. We also did a Chautauqua Grape and Grain Trail initiative to highlight our adult beverage sort of industries and really tell the story about what we have here in those terms. We also did an interactive trails map, which was which was a big lift as well, that really communicates all the trails that we have, all the opportunities there are for sort of outdoor recreation, and being able to do that, online with an app or print versions, but all of that is to sort of, again, tell the story and let the outside world know what we have here, and for people that come here, how they can access those things. And then we did I already talked about housing market assessment strategy, but we also, as part of that, we did code enforcement, looked at sort of the code enforcement throughout the community and what things could we do to help with that. That's not an easy one, tough nut to crack, but we're still working towards improving that. And I'll go quickly here. In the news, really, Nate got the Rising Star Award at the New York State Economic Development Council, recognized by all the state IDAs and economic development agencies as the Rising Star. It was really exciting. We ranked number one first by Buffalo Business First as the number one economic development agency in the region. We hired Shelby to succeed Rich several months ago. And then we also received an award from the American Planning Association for work that we're doing on the Chautauqua River down here, all the planning and how do we activate the waterfront here in Jamestown. And we also received a couple of grants from Department of State, over 2 million. So we're working on that as well. Now, in terms of goals, we got to continue to be aggressive and intentional, reaching out to our businesses to always constantly let them know who we are and what we have to offer. We need to complete those shovel-ready sites, but also it's not one and done, because somebody could come along and buy that land and now we have nothing. So we always have to be thinking forward and looking for new opportunities, which we're doing. And we got some really exciting prospects. Let's put it that way. We got to fill some of these buildings that have been vacant for some time. Silver Creek School, you all know about that, a big housing project with Stell and Park Grove that we're part of. Lakeshore Hospital, we're in active conversations about that. Truck Light Building as well. We're constantly talking to potential developers about that building. And of course, the Furniture Mart building right here, we're really working closely with the Gabby Foundation and trying to get that back and activated. We have a couple of business of Immunity Bio and Electrovia. Electrovia is been slow to start, maybe I could put it, but they are moving forward, and I'm really excited about that. We continuously talk to them. Immunity Bio, they're saying they're 2 years out from any real job growth, but they do have a plan. So we're working with them, trying to get that going. We got to continue to push forward with the Partnership for Economic Growth, which is a separate entity from the IDA, but we support them and they support us, and we got to keep that going. I already talked about acquiring new shovel-ready sites. We got to continue to do that. We got to continue to invest in the Live CHQ and Choose CHQ campaigns. It's one thing if you come up with a plan and you sort of launch it and then it fizzles away. We got to continue to invest in that, keep pushing that message out, keep trying to get traction on that. And we always help our municipalities, especially Jamestown and Dunkirk. We're doing a lot of projects with them. We're here, we meet with them all the time. We've got a lot of exciting things. So we got to continue to do that, and all the municipalities as well. Agriculture enhancement, we can't forget about our farms. We're going to have a meeting here to talk potentially about creating a loan fund for farmers. We'll see how that goes, but we're also doing some other things in conjunction with a bunch of other, like Cornell Cooperative Extension and others. And then NRG reuse, that's a project. We received a couple of grants. The last one was a NYSERDA grant for, I think it was 160,000. Wrapping up that work. We're having a meeting of the stakeholders weeks, and we'll be discussing next steps. What do we want to do with that information? So that's in a nutshell. Now, before I stop here, I wanted to call out our staff, obviously. They work so hard every day. I mean, all this information that we have in front of us is a result of all of their hard work, and our consultants, Phillips Lytle, Harris Beach, our stakeholders, our planning department, we work closely with them, with CPEG, with the county executive, the legislature, and others. So great work. And then one last thing, also Jason really was the one that did a lot of work on putting this together. So I want to call out Jason on the great work he did. So that's in a nutshell. How long did I take? Is that 10 minutes?
What do you think?
10-ish.
10-ish. 9 minutes. 9
Battery stopped on the clock.
9 minutes?
9 minutes.
Any questions?
Jason says.
Any questions? 13, was it? Oh, that's not too bad.
Oh.
Yeah. Good. I did good. I did well. Did well. All right.
Mayor Koch, how-
Any questions, comments?
Awesome.
good work.
Great job.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Next, we'll move into the treasurer's report.
Okay. So we are actively working through 2024 audit right now. So that's kind of where our focus is. So you'll see in front of you the December 31st of 2024 financials. We are still in a very good cash position. A lot of that, obviously is the 2.9 million and the timing for the Ripley site. So that'll come down as we get involved in that project. But the IDA, we're still sitting pretty at 2.5. So we are pretty good for our funding, being able to fund certain projects that we have committed. Like I said, we're currently working through the audit, so I would expect to see some minimal changes to these numbers as we go through, because there are some entries that are provided by the accountants for the lease liability and for the bad debt reserve. So we put in kind of placeholders in the interim, so I don't expect a big fluctuation, but that will fluctuate. Because of that, we didn't print out the January financials, because as just is modified, that'll also modify. So rather than giving you a whole bunch of numbers that are bound to change, we figured that we would just present December for right now. I don't expect anything out of typical seasonality for January. January is looking good and on trend so far. So if you look at the statement of revenues and expenditures for 2024, you'll see that we had a very good year last year. IDA was profitable by 279. That was primarily driven by the application and administrative fees. We had a better than expected year for application fees, primarily driven by solar, in the Wells project as well. You'll see CRLF and Alltech and EDA CARES funds. Those were profitable as well. That typically rolls back into the fund availability and gives us better, access to funds to loan out into the community. Any questions there? And then the next page basically just kind of breaks down the previous page into a little bit more detail. So there's not really much that I have to call out there. Again, just a reminder that bad debt expense, that last line in the expense section, that is likely to change, but should be nominal in nature. And then the last tab is the comparison versus budget. So again, we are beating our budget, primarily driven by the application and admin fees. Some of the unfavorability in the expense is really driven by timing and some of the projects that we were involved in that would be offset in the revenue from in the grant lines in the revenue. Questions? Oh, I have.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very nice. We have a motion to accept the treasurer's report. Megan, do we have a second?
Second, if you.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Report has been approved. At this point, I would entertain a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing the financial or credit history of a particular person or corporation. In particular, I would like to discuss the status of our loan portfolio and the financial and credit status of some of our borrowers. Do I hear such a motion?
I'll make that motion too.
Thank you, Tom. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Sagan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll go into executive session. We are back in open session, and I'd like to report that there were no actions or votes taken during executive session, and therefore no minutes of the meeting were taken. Do we have any old business to come before the board? Hearing none, we'll consider the meeting adjourned. The next CCIDA board meeting will be March the 25th at 10:30. Take note that we're going to be meeting in Dunkirk, New York at the Center for Innovation and Economic Development. So if you come here, you'll be in the wrong location. But we'll also be streaming YouTube and Zoom. Go ahead and move right into the Chautauqua Region Economic Development Corporation Board of Directors meeting. We're at the BWB Building, 201 West 3rd Street. We're streaming live via YouTube and Zoom. It's February the 25th at 11:15. Go ahead and do roll call. Gary Henry's here. Sagan Sheffield Smith. Tom Harmon.
Here.
Amy Harding. Dan Demart.
Here.
John Healy.
Here.
Dan Hetzenreiter.
Here.
You should have already received the minutes from the November 19th meeting and had a chance to review those. Do we have a motion to accept those minutes?
Motion to accept.
Dan, do we have a second?
I can second it.
Thank you, Tom. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes have been approved. Do we have any new business to come before the board? Hearing none, we'll move right into the executive director's presentation for CPEG.
So in the years past, I've provided this report on how the Partnership for Economic Growth has performed. But really Nate manages this group, and so I talked to Nate about him presenting this year. He said he would beat me in terms of time. No, I'm just kidding. But Nate, if you wanna run with us.
Absolutely. So I think by now all of you kind of understand what the partnership's mission and what sort of projects we're working on. We saw a lot of success in 2024 and 5 years since we created this initiative. First and foremost, want to thank our investors and funders that have really helped us do two things. One is to extend the capacity of the IDA and the county by providing a small and capable team to help advance some of these projects, our own initiatives, but also to support partners throughout the county. And the other part of our funding goes to actual project implementation. So we've been really fortunate. The Wilson Foundation, the county and IDA that provide in-kind support, and then the Northern Chautauqua Community Foundation and Gebby Foundation for their commitments. In 2024, we worked in various ways on almost 60 individual projects. That's CPEG's own initiatives, as well as I mentioned, supporting those of our partners, helped to leverage upwards of $4 million, and that is a conservative figure in both grant funding and total project costs for priority projects that fall within the 5 work group categories: business development, housing, infrastructure, placemaking, workforce readiness and development. We have approximately 110 active partners within those 5 work groups that meet quarterly to really collaborate, share updates, what's going on. We have guest speakers that discuss best practices and how to approach difficult projects. And we also really, in those work groups, prioritize opportunities and discuss projects that are competitive for applicable state, federal, other funding opportunities. So in 2024, the partnership brought in about $2.4 million in direct funding to CREDC. And we invested almost $488,000 to advance 35 individual projects, again, our own and those of our partners. One quick figure I'll add that isn't in here, but looking back at 5 years of the partnership, we've helped more than $50 million be invested in these project priorities. Mark already touched on some of these, but flipping to the next page, just an itemized list of the grant awards. Again, we're most of all excited by the 3-year commitment by the Wilson Foundation, which will really help allow us to do what we're doing for the next 3+ years. I'll also just draw your attention to 2 Department of State grants we were able to obtain in the last year or so, both to advance brownfield planning efforts in Jamestown and countywide. The following table is just a list of the funding that we've allocated to help various projects get over the finish line. And then flipping to the next page, Mark already touched on some of these, but again, the Chautauqua River activation, this has taken some time, but again, as Mark said, we have an award-winning plan and $2 million or more secured to advance 5 individual projects behind us in the basin, adjacent to the comedy center to activate that area of the city. We completed a $150,000 marketing campaign to promote the Grape and Grain Trail, and that promotes the existing wineries as part of Lake Erie wine country, but also the breweries, distilleries, and tourism assets of the county. Mark mentioned the trails map. A lot of work went into that, thanks to our planning department, Rebecca and Jacob Bodway, for leading that effort. The Chautauqua River Central and East Brownfield Opportunity Area project I just mentioned, we'll be kicking that off hopefully this spring, looking at 5 sites and keying up hopefully private investment and reactivating, redeveloping key sites adjacent to the Chautauqua. Continued support for the city of Dunkirk in their $10 million DRI award. We're involved in several individual projects and helping the city implement those. Mark already mentioned, but a lot of work went in last year to develop kind of a 2-phase housing strategy. One, what the first phase was looking at, what's the market today and then 5 years from now? And the second part, what are actions, projects, initiatives within our control that the county, IDA, and partnership and our partners can influence to build more housing throughout the county. You all know well about the Live CHQ initiative by now, but really just wanted to recognize Jason again. When we brought Jason on almost a year and a half ago or so, we had a concept, consultant and some resources, and Jason really took the bull by the horns and implemented that. Not only did he lead the creation of this campaign, but the reconstruction of our 2 websites last year was a huge undertaking, and Jason and the team did a great job with that. New York Forward support, again, we're helping our communities be more competitive for state funding. We assisted Westfield, Faulkner, Findlay Lake, and Sherman submit applications to the state's $4.5 million. Really, it's a competition regionally for New York Forward funds for downtown revitalization. We're hopeful that one Chautauqua County community will be announced as successful $4.5 million grant awardee, hopefully within the next couple of weeks. A lot went in. We continue to advance trail development. Last year, focusing on phase 4, the Overland Trail reconstruction. That in and of itself was $140,000+ effort. But in the last 5 years, Jacob Bodway, our trail guy, has helped us secure more than $850,000 of investments to maintain our trails and develop that trail. We already spoke about shovel-ready site development, but the partnership team supports the IDA on those efforts. And then finally, related to Live CHQ, Monica Simpson took the lead in developing and launching this Workforce Ambassadors program. It's basically our county welcome wagon to help new employees, become part of our community and to help encourage those on the fence about accepting a job or moving here, what assets we have in our community and why they should do that. So again, just in closing, happy to answer any questions about projects. This isn't an exhaustive list of everything we're working on, but are the highlights. And thanks again to our team. Again, Rebecca, Monica, Jason, Christy, Crystal, Jacob, but also huge amount of work goes into administering all these grants and funding. So thank you again to Kayla and Shelby. Jeanette's also helpful with setting up meetings and helping us do what we do. And again, to our more than 110 active engaged partners and our funders, the county, the IDA, and the foundations to help us do what we do. Any questions?
It's impressive. It's dizzying. I don't know how you keep it all straight. Very, very good. Very good.
Thank you.
So you're doing the treasurer's report for a critic.
I will.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll start with the balance sheet for Critic. There is a big cash standing, as you can tell across the board, that 593 total. You'll also notice that below the total, the other revenue is at 227,000. So we've got money saved up for a lot of these projects and funds are multiple years. So if we don't use all of the funding in 1 year, it's deferred and used the following years. So we've got plenty of money to continue on with all of these projects. You'll notice the bad debt reserve of negative 67,000. That is subject to change, like Shelby had alluded to. The auditors will reevaluate our credit OCR loans and adjust as need be. So we'll go on to the statement of revenue and expense. We had a good year for 2024. It within the CPEG column, you'll notice the excess is actually negative of 23,000 some change. That's for the Market New York grant fund. I mean, we have to spend it to get it. And as of the fiscal year end, we had spent it. And now we're just waiting for the funds to be received to cover that balance. All within the contracts and whatnot. That's just a revenue timing thing that clears up that entire balance and then some. So we had a really good year. And then we'll go over to the budget versus actual. This is a little tricky to do. Not that the IDA doesn't defer revenue, but there's so many of the CPEG funds that are so many years. So you kind of have to guesstimate what you're going to have left over at the end of the previous year and say that up as deferred revenue that you can use toward the next year and budgeting and all that stuff. So it's a work in progress, but Nate does a really great job with it. So you'll notice the sometimes we are a decent amount over, like the negative 17.9 and the negative 95,000. There's more deferred revenue in the prior year than expected, and so the budget, the more than expected and budgeted and spent in the current year. So a lot of this is a timing issue. Critic and CPEG recognized more revenue than they budgeted, whereas we had more deferred revenue that they could use again. Fluid when you talk about the deferred versus what you recognize. But overall, we had one more project or fund into this, the North County Young Professionals Group. It's very small, but there's a few things that we don't actually budget for because well, didn't foresee them coming on board in the prior year. So they're not in the budget, but overall, we did pretty good. Again, I know it shows a negative of the 259, but we have quite a bit of money in. And again, there's some funds that aren't included in the budget. That just don't apply the budget column, so.
But in essence, it boils down to timing, right? So we try our best to budget, you know, what projects are gonna come in at what time. And a lot of it, you know, a lot of the variance would just sit in deferred. And it just washes off to timing.
And the grants, they represent a whole new level of challenge level, right?
Yeah.
Because they're multi-year, in a lot of cases, you gotta spend it and then get reimbursed, and it's really a difficult juggling act.
Right. So it's a matter of being reimbursed, applying for reimbursement, guessing the timing of the projects and the above.
And sometimes you budget for contractors, you know, a certain expense, certain amount of revenue recognized, a certain amount of expense to go to a certain contractor within that fiscal year. And maybe they don't always get what all they had meant to do in that one year. So they can transfer over into the next year. So on and so forth. It's all very fluid.
Any questions on the treasurer's report? We have a motion to accept it. Thank you, Sagan. Do we have a second? Dan, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? The report has been accepted. Any old business to come before CREDC? Hearing none, we'll consider the meeting adjourned. Thank you.